Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. A.A. Ron.
A.A. Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Special guest, Jenna Miscavige. Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
Okay, so we're playing around with a new setup, obviously. You can see we got a different boom mic than normal, coming in from down low, sneaking up from the bottom. And yeah, let's see how this goes with the audio situation. But so Jenna had a fun idea for a chat today, and correct me if I get this wrong, but it started out with the idea that or talking about what it is that makes it easy for some people to hear stories of ex-Scientologists and ex-staff members and ex-Sea Org members and somehow dismiss them of, oh, well, I know a Scientologist and it wasn't like that for them. Or I know of Scientologists and it couldn't possibly be like that for them. Like whether we're talking about Tom Cruise or Jenna Elfman or Rebecca Minkoff, or really even non-celebrities, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just the idea that, you know, when we talk about like not having an education or all of these hours of manual labor as a kid, or people, I feel like sometimes people are like, but is that really what's happening for Tom Cruise? Or how can that be true and Tom Cruise still be a Scientologist? Or, you know, Elizabeth Moss, she's obviously making movies or whatever. So how can both things be true? And so I feel like it sort of takes away from people's stories because people, you know, maybe knew someone who was like a public but not a Sea Org member, and it sort of makes it hard to believe some of the more crazy, hardcore stories of what happened in Scientology.
Right. Yeah. I definitely have seen in the comment section of different videos, people assuming that the celebrities are shielded from certain aspects of Scientology that are considered the worst parts of Scientology. And that they sort of believe that the celebrities don't know that these things occur or that these things are true or that they exist. And that's actually not true.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay, the celebrities may not know that the registrar is scrubbing the dumpster with a toothbrush because he didn't meet his quota. But that's not really the worst parts of Scientology. Those are just some of the more crazy examples of, you know, just things to come up with for punishments. But when you talk about like kids in the Sea organization.
Right. Yeah. So like when I was on course at Flag, I mean, Juliette Lewis was in the same course room as me. And so like the same kid word clearers that were there, or kids who were in full-time training, or kids who worked in the training department, those same kids, just like me, were running around doing jobs that really kids shouldn't be doing. And so, you know, especially when you are not somewhere where your access to the internet is limited, or your access to the outside world, or what people say about Scientology is limited, it's hard to understand how you cannot hear things about Scientology and then see what you've seen kids running around and manning all of these posts and still be like, oh, that's not really true. It's bullshit. They know.
That's
like
right.
They see all the kids running around all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, especially since Flag in Clearwater, Florida, is one of the organizations where if you're a Scientology celebrity, you've been to Flag to have auditing.
Right. Yeah.
And for the longest time, and I say this with a little bit of a caveat of obviously I haven't been there for over 20 years, but we all know things don't really change in there.
Yeah.
For the longest time, the tech pages is the term for the post in a Sea Org who is responsible for going to get the PC when the auditor is ready for session. So the PC is just the person who's getting auditing. So you have these celebrities who are paying big bucks to go get auditing at Flag, in many cases, probably paying preferential rates so that they can have their favorite auditor.
Right.
And when they're ready for their auditing session, it's like a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kid who is a Sea Org member that's already signed a billion-year contract,
Right.
who's working 120 hours a week,
Right.
who is very obviously not in school,
Right.
who,
Yes.
and their parents aren't there.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
this child being like, okay, Mr. Cruz, your auditor is waiting for you now. Come with me, please. And this is just one tiny little example of how even your biggest celebrity is aware of children being indentured slaves for Scientology, and the celebrities are okay with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the boarding school that I went to for kids whose parents were in the Sea Organization, which is the most dedicated group for Scientology, many of those kids were brought over to Florida and they were posted as tech pages, which is what Aaron just described, and or kids who carried around auditing folders. So that was like their main job. So it's literally kids who were born into Scientology, did not get an education, did not go to school. I mean, they were working there during school hours and are sort of like servicing you, treating you like you're the queen of the universe, and it's just crazy like how that would not be such a huge outpoint. What's a good word for an outpoint?
Red flag.
Yeah, right. Like a red flag if you're an adult and you're in the regular world. And so like I was even when I was on training and I was in the library, Jenna Elfman was there with her auditor in Scientology. And there were tons of kids running around in uniforms. And so, and she would come there every day and I was there every day. So it's not like these people don't see these things. Yeah, or just another good example is like, how can Katie Holmes know that Scientology is a terrible place for her child, but Tom Cruise not know what at least all of the allegations are? And when you see those allegations and then you go into a Scientology church and you see kids there and you see young people being responsible for delivering all these services, it's like, how can you not at least question them? Question what's going on? And the answer is that's impossible unless you're purposely shutting yourself off so that you can continue to get whatever treatment you're getting that makes you feel great and special. Even though you probably already get enough of that since you're a celebrity. So maybe just like let the kids have a little bit of that and stop giving money to this organization or promoting it. That is basically just like ruining kids' lives.
The point you make about Katie Holmes is an unbelievable point that honestly it never occurred to me to make that point, which is like anyone who thinks celebrities are shielded from the abusive parts of Scientology is like, if that were to be true, it would be most true in Tom Cruise's orbit.
Right.
But every one Tom Cruise marries makes an escape from Scientology.
Right. Yeah.
And so if it was evident to Katie Holmes, who you would think that Scientology would have been on its best behavior to bring Katie Holmes in as fast as possible, which they did,
right.
But then to keep her happy for as long as possible, you'd think they would have just anything they could have done to keep Katie Holmes around, they would have done.
Right.
And yet what she observed, what she experienced, what she was exposed to, what we can assume she saw Suri being exposed to was enough that she's like, no, I am going to literally escape, not just from Scientology,
right.
but from this marriage.
Yeah, exactly. And not have my kid grow up here.
Yeah. And so if Katie Holmes in just a matter of 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years saw enough of Scientology to be like, oh no, then we don't really have to wonder whether Jenna Elfman or Lisa Marie Presley or Priscilla Presley or John Travolta or the late Kirstie Alley or Michael Pena
right. Or even
are capable of seeing what's happening in Scientology.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or Rebecca Minkoff or Elizabeth Moss.
Right.
It's like, even if they were kids back then, now they're adults and now they have their own kids. That gives you an even more insane perspective. I mean, their kids aren't in the Sea Org. Why is that?
That's right.
So
yeah, if being in the Sea Org is the greatest good, Because I was about to say earlier when I was remembering just the idea of these, rich, famous, powerful celebrities being, having like a 13-year-old girl come and get them for their auditing session. I was going to say there was probably a part in the minds of those celebrities that was almost like how fortunate and lucky these kids are to be in such a sane environment and not have to experience the aberration of the WOG world and be like, then how come your kid's not in the Sea Org now?
Yeah, or even more, how come you're not?
Right.
Feel free to join. They obviously know enough not to join up themselves.
That's right. They're not turning anyone away. Send your kid in right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, but the celebrities themselves.
I know,
but I'm just saying, like, if they're really thinking that, oh, how nice and how sane. It's like, oh, well, get your ass in here right now. Let's put you on the EPF.
I know. Could you even imagine?
Yeah.
But celebrities aside, you had mentioned, because when you brought this up as an idea, it wasn't anything really about celebrities at all. It was sort of about this idea of, someone might know someone else and be like, oh, but that wasn't their experience.
Right. Yeah. So I think that when people hear stories of people who are on staff or who were Sea Org members, and then they hear the story of maybe a Scientology public, or they know somebody who's a Scientology public, and they see, oh, I went to a concert with them, or, we worked together on this, and they just seem like maybe a somewhat normal person. It makes it hard to believe the more crazy stories. I don't know if that's a good thing to call them, but like the stories that generally happen with people who are in the Sea Org or on staff. I just think that people don't realize that there's a difference between public, staff, and Sea Org. And so if they know somebody who is a celebrity or is just a public, it may make them feel like, okay, that possibly can't be true.
Yeah. Scientologists will also just straight up lie to their friends about, oh, well, I've never witnessed that myself. That's not something. I've been in Scientology for 40 years and I've never observed that. So I can't speak for that person's experience, but I can say that's not a thing.
Right, for sure. Yeah. But even if somebody who is lying to their friends about Scientology, they're still in a position where they have friends who aren't in Scientology to be lying to them, which is a position that I was never in.
Right.
So to that degree, maybe their friend will still believe them because they're like, oh, well, they have their own house. And they drove here. They have their own car.
Right.
So when they hear the more like, I was at the boarding school, or I'm only thinking of myself, but like, or I was separated from my parents.
Right.
Like, but then they see their friend with their kid or whatever. It just might make it seem less believable. But I guess everybody listening probably knows the difference between a public, a staff member, and a Sea Org member, but maybe just in case.
Yeah. Well, the public Scientologists are the ones who just pay. They pay to do Scientology auditing. They pay to do Scientology courses. They don't work for Scientology in any official capacity. There are ways that public Scientologists can sort of work for Scientology by introducing new people to Scientology and getting commissions for doing that. And those people are called field staff members. But it's a little bit of an irony because they're called field staff members, but they're only called that because they're public. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to call them a field staff member.
Right. Yeah. And there's not even a ton of field staff members. So, but in the end, somebody who's a public, they can have their own house, they can have their own car, they can have a job, make regular money in the outside world. And they have enough money to pay for Scientology and at least to some degree, enough to get a credit card.
And, one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas somebody who's on staff, they work full time in a Scientology org, and they make very little money because it's based on how much money the org makes, which often is not very much at all. I mean, how much money did you make when you were a staff member?
I mean, if you're making $150 a week, that was an incredible week.
Yeah.
It's more likely it's $12, $13, $25. Like it's even less than Sea Org members make.
Yeah, it's crazy. So even though you can live in your own place. You're not being provided birthing. It's like you have to pay for this. So usually you live with like 3 other people or sleep on someone's couch probably who lets you do that, and you can't really afford much. But I guess you like, so you have the option to have your own car, you have the option to have your own place, you have the option for your kids to go to regular school, but a lot of that is made impossible by how little you get paid and how many hours you work.
Yeah. And usually that's, because obviously you cannot support yourself being a staff member. So oftentimes someone will be a staff member, but their spouse will not be a staff member and work in the real world, or their parents still support them, or sometimes there are people who work full time at the org. They work full time nights and weekends, but during the day they have a moonlight job, or what they call the WOG job, to pay the bills. Like actually, for the last few years I was on staff, that's what I did. I worked through a temp agency at like AmeriHealth, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the Philadelphia Orchestra. I worked at SmithKline Beecham, a pharmaceutical company. It's now GlaxoSmithKline, or they keep merging. And so I, as a Scientology staff member, was working for my moonlight job in the HR department of a pharmaceutical company.
Which is absolutely heinous if you're a Scientologist, because they believe that pharmaceutical companies are the devil and they're trying to kill everyone and brainwash them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
we have Aaron here.
They literally, I forget which psych drugs that company makes, but it's one of the famous ones.
Yeah.
And my mom at the time was a staff member, and she was married to another staff member who was the director of special affairs, Bruce Thompson. And I just sort of casually let it slip that my latest work assignment was at GlaxoSmithKline or SmithKline Beecham. I forget which one it was at the time. And he was like so disgusted. He was like, almost like it didn't even occur to you that this would be a problem.
Oh my God, that is so
I'm like,
funny.
it's just a temp assignment. He's like, maybe find another one.
That is hilarious.
I'm like, I didn't say no. I'm a yes man. I'm an American. I'm not an Americant. I take all assignments.
So if anybody takes any like psychiatric drugs, they can't be a Scientologist. You can't even go on Scientology services.
Yeah, you can do training. You can't get auditing.
I see.
You can do training. You can request special permission to do some of the auditing required for some of the coursework. But yeah, I mean, for the rest of this lifetime, you are not eligible for Scientology auditing. And that's where a Scientologist would probably say, if you got them in private behind closed doors, that like, well, what's the point of continuing a lifetime where you can't do Scientology? Just drop the body, pick up a new body, and maybe 8, 9, 10 years, you'll be in Scientology. What's the problem?
Right. Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I can't believe you worked there.
I know.
What a criminal.
They liked me too. They liked me. They wanted me to apply for the full-time position.
They could see the anti-Scientology glimmer in your eye. So yeah, that's what staff is. And then a Sea Org member, they basically sign a $1 billion year contract because in Scientology, they believe that you live lifetime after lifetime. So they sign a $1 billion year contract pledging their soul to lifetime after lifetime of servitude to Scientology. And, they wear military uniforms, and they are not allowed to have children, and they work really, really long hours. They basically work 7 days a week. They are occasionally allowed to have time off, but towards the end of, I was in the Sea Org, towards the end of that, there was no time off allowed. And you're sort of isolated from the outside world. Like when I was a Sea Org member, I didn't really see any non-Sea Org members or even non-Scientologists. And so something that happened to me in my life, like I never lived in a house with my parents, but there are many Scientologists who do. And so those stories don't make Scientology less bad. It just, both things are true. And I think that sometimes it is hard to like to not feel like one discredits the other because one person's experience was very different. But when in fact both things are true, both stories are true.
Yeah. I see some people are asking about Juliette Lewis in the comments section, whether we think she's actually on the fence about Scientology. I'm going to try to talk quieter so that our audio levels are more similar. I tend to just always yell.
Okay.
And here, I'll cheat a little bit towards you. Ooh, that's actually a good idea. Okay. Juliette Lewis is still as much of a dedicated Scientologist as she has always been. And she's one of these celebrities who I think because she sort of makes it seem like she's also a Christian when she talks about it. And because she'll be one of these celebrities who's like, oh, I've never observed anything like that. You know, people who are fans of Juliette Lewis or, you know, like her for any variety of reasons would be like, but Juliette Lewis is a good person and she would have seen those things. So these stories that we hear, they must be isolated incidences. You know, it must be the most extreme. The thing is, the stories that we hear from former Scientologists, they're incredible because they're not the most extreme. They're commonplace in Scientology.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And now that you're even talking about Juliette Lewis, I'm thinking like her sister, Brandy Lewis, who was also on course at the same time when Juliette Lewis was, she was married to a guy named Ben Schulman. And Ben Schulman's brother and sister were at the ranch with me, which is a boarding school. And I mean, and his brother, Brandon, I mean, he got sent to the RPF because of Stacy Moxon. She's this girl in Scientology who committed suicide. And she was the daughter of one of the main attorneys for Scientology. And it's just impossible. Even like it's impossible for Juliette Lewis not to know anything about this or to not have heard about this from her sister, her sister's husband. I mean, so everyone is sort of connected to everyone else, you know? It's impossible. It's impossible not to know these things.
Yeah. Ben Schulman's brother, Nicky Schulman, is the one who was messing around with pipe bombs with Sergio Belinsky.
Oh.
And if I recall correctly, I always run a risk of getting these details wrong. They hid Nicky Schulman from the authorities for a long time until things with Sergio Belinsky had blown over. Because Sergio Belinsky literally blew his hands off. This was like a child.
Yeah.
Sea Org child.
Yeah.
God, this gets really disgusting really quick.
Yeah. Greg Schulman is in OSA.
He's in,
he's in OSA Inn.
And
he was when I was there.
I think Serge's mom was also in OSA. I could be wrong. I always risk getting these details wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, so like Nicky, I can't remember which one was in the Sea Org, Nicky or Ben. I think Ben was actually in the Sea Org, but his brother Nicky was out of the Sea Org and one of these just like sort of maybe former ranch kids who was just running wild on the streets of LA with Sergio Belinsky, messing around, getting into some real.
I think Ben was too, but then later he.
I think they pulled Ben out of the Sea Org to full-time babysit Nicky and be basically his watcher, his handler, to keep him away from everyone, including the authorities.
I see.
And yet even their mom, I forget their mom, she was in the Sea Org with me by the time I got there in 2002. What was her name?
Vicky.
Nope.
But I don't. So yeah, because
so
they had the same mom as Brandon and Leah.
Well, that's right. And so I knew that her son Ben was married to Juliette Lewis's sister,
right?
Brandy.
Yeah.
And so even Juliette Lewis is connected familially to some of the most horrific stories of abuse in Scientology. Yeah. These people know.
Yeah. And that was just offhand. Like I didn't think of that before we started this.
Yeah.
Like that's just something that I thought of offhand. And it's crazy because like the only reason to stay involved or to be okay with this is literally because you're being treated better. And honestly, like in the small world of Scientology, you're basically the Tom Cruise, you know? if you're Juliette Lewis, you know? So that feeling of just being Scientology famous even, or having all these people thinking that you're the most wonderful person in the world and getting that extra special treatment at the Celebrity Center is just like, I mean, that's enough to keep you in and not say anything.
Yeah. Do you remember when Juliette Lewis brought Brad Pitt to Flag and they were doing the Pure?
I think that was at CC, because at the time my mom was working on the renovations of CC. My mom's job was to do renovations of important church buildings. And so my mom met Brad Pitt. Sorry. It's a very serious
What are you
moment.
saying I'm sorry for?
Because I just got so excited about the idea of Brad Pitt, because I was in love with him as a child when my mom met him. And I was like, oh, you met him. That's what I was saying. Sorry.
Was this bad? This was like the 12 Monkey days, wasn't it? I gotta double check my years, but
I don't know.
So I remember
Legends of the Fall time.
Oh yeah. I remember Juliette Lewis bringing back Brad Pitt to Flag.
Oh.
And I remember one of the amount of shit they will let celebrities get away with. Like Juliette Lewis was still actively shooting up like intravenous drugs while at Flag on the Pure. And could you
That's right. I remember when she attested to clear too, because she had the same auditor as me, Karen Thompson.
Oh yeah.
And so Karen Thompson was like a big important auditor because she had audited Juliette Lewis, and then she was my auditor.
You know, when my brother did the Pure at Flag, it was with Juliette Lewis. I don't think they were twins, but she was in the sauna.
Yeah.
So it's like, even when it comes to things like seeing kids doing the purification rundown.
Right. Yeah. I was on the Pure with Lisa Marie Presley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she did it like 25 times. So
yeah. Well, I was on it one of those times. Yeah. That's true. But I was like 14 and
you probably looked like you were like 10.
Why are you saying that?
Because you're a small
I was
child.
small for a 14-year-old.
Oh, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was the same as I am now.
You were the same height then?
Yeah, since I was 12.
Girls do stop growing earlier than guys, I think.
Yeah, definitely some do.
Okay, even something like the knowledge of children being trained as professional auditors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, Tom Cruise's own daughter did auditor training.
Right.
Now, she was probably already of the age of majority by the time that she did. But, you know, you cannot go into the Flag course rooms without seeing children doing professional auditor training, whether it's pro TRs, pro metering, or the actual academy levels. I mean, you just can't.
No. I mean, there's more children than there are adults when I was there.
Yeah. Even in the latest Source magazine, which is the magazine they send out for Flag, the big organization in Clearwater, Florida, there was like a young adult, well, not a young adult, a young person featured in the magazine. She was like 16 or 17. And she was saying how she was already, I think, a class 5, either a class 5 auditor or a class 5 graduate auditor. That means she's already done the worst parts.
Right.
I mean, the worst parts really start at Academy level 0 up to Academy level 2. It's pretty much the worst parts.
Yeah.
And as far as the subject matter, what the child would be auditing adults on, you know, what the meat and potatoes of those auditing actions are.
Right. Totally.
And it takes years. So for her to already be 16 or 17 years old and saying she's like a permanently, you know, finished her internships, a permanently certified class 5 or class 5 graduate auditor, it's like, that's who they're putting in the magazines.
Right.
The celebrities know this. This is not the secret part of Scientology. This is the part that they all say out loud.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when I was on the Pure with Lisa Marie Presley, it was like the gal who ran the front office for the Pure area. She was just a kid, just a few years older than me. The person who would bring the auditing folders there every day was just a kid. The person who worked in the fitness center, because you have to run on a treadmill for 30 minutes before you go in the sauna, the person who worked in there was a kid.
How about this? When you go to the examiner, Sophie Amiel, remember Sophie?
Right. Yeah.
She was the examiner when she was like 14 years old or something.
That's so true. Yeah.
Literally every person. Well, she was the examiner and the coachman.
Well,
But,
she was in the
but
FH
Chrissa,
later.
Chrissa,
No.
Chrissa McNichol. Oh, she was in the FH later?
Yeah. I would go all the way to the FH to go to Sophie.
And so that means literally every person who's paying for flag at auditing, after they get out of their auditing session, they got to go to the examiner and pick up the cans and see if their needle is still floating. And here's a 14-year-old girl who's working for the next billion years.
Exactly.
They all know. Now, to play the devil's advocate part of it, as far as do celebrities get treated better? Yes, of course, there's ways in which they get treated better, but they're very specific ways. First of all, people just kiss their butts more. But it doesn't mean they get a different brand of Scientology. Okay, you're not allowed to recruit the child. You're not allowed, it's supposed to be against the rules, to try and recruit a celebrity or the child of a celebrity for staff or the Sea Org. You'll get in trouble if you do that. I think you are not allowed to like show up and knock on the door of a celebrity to raise money to do a reg cycle the way you could with a public. And that's why like, what are some examples of like of just celebrities being treated better? Okay, so like, well, for example, I happened to when Leah Remini was on OT5 at AOLA, she didn't have to wait in the same. See, AOLA isn't set up for celebrities like the Celebrity Center is. So they set aside a specific office for her where she could be comfortable and relax in private. You know, that was some executive's office that they repurposed for her, so that she didn't have to sit in the waiting room with everyone. The special treatment celebrities get in Scientology is not different than the special treatment celebrities get anywhere else in the world. They're just treated a bit better, but they don't get a different brand of Scientology. Unless you can think of, feel free to jump in if there's an example of that where I'm wrong. But one of the other examples that I like to use, Paul Haggis. When he tells his story of like sort of the last few years of his Scientology, of his time in Scientology, part of his story is the ethics officer forcing his wife to disconnect from her elderly mother for something that had happened decades earlier. And you go, that doesn't sound like a celebrity getting special treatment to me. That sounds like an ethics officer being just as much of a ruthless piece of shit to a celebrity as they would anyone else.
Yeah.
Another obvious example is the horrible way Leah Remini was treated after the Tom Cruise wedding.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Now, that was because she had upset the most important celebrity. But still, Leah was a big celebrity.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I guess I am not, like, I guess I don't know how things were if you were public. But like the idea of like Danny Masterson going out and partying all the time with all these non-Scientologists, drinking and I don't know, being friends with people who maybe wouldn't be considered ethical by Scientology. I'm like, how did he get away with that?
Right. Well, define get away with it. Not be declared, not be in ethics lower conditions, not
yeah, I guess be in ethics lower conditions and made to stop.
Could part of it have been, well, I guess my answer here is giving the excuse for it, that they would have hopes that Danny would be able to use his celebrity connections to get other people like Ashton Kutcher into Scientology. So maybe you're going to treat him, give him a little more leeway.
Well, exactly. That's my point.
That is the special treatment.
Yes.
Right.
That's the entire like purpose of the special treatment.
Right. And of course, by the time it came up that he was being accused of sexual assault by multiple women, it's not like he was declared.
Right.
He was sec checked. It does seem like he was doing lowers, but like, was he ComEv'd? I mean, if you're a public, does it really matter?
Yeah. I mean, I guess not.
Yeah. But he certainly wasn't declared.
Yeah. And I think a lot of celebrities, I mean, it's like they have their own special classroom, or like, you know, Lisa Marie Presley had the sauna to herself, but of course she's a celebrity. So it's like a privacy thing.
Right.
Yeah. Or she had the whole fitness, like we had to be out of that space at a certain time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, she was nice. Like I'm not.
But like another example, John Travolta. Well, he's allowed to continue to be in Scientology, even though he's not so openly, but somewhat openly gay.
Right. Yeah.
But he's not allowed to do OT7. So that's what I mean. Like they
I
get
see.
special treatment as people, but they
Mm.
get the same brand of Scientology.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good
don't tell
point.
me John Travolta doesn't want to do OT7 and 8 if they would let him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
That's
like there's
true.
anything that makes OT7 and 8 harder to do if you're gay.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same auditing of body thetans.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Don't tell me Kelly Preston wasn't embarrassed the fact that by the fact that John Travolta wasn't OT8.
Yeah.
In fact, I know that she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird. I mean, I guess the common theme here, though, is even if they're given special treatment, just sort of a privacy and celebrity, they're not shielded from the parts of Scientology that we all know about.
Yeah.
They know.
Yes, exactly. Definitely. Yeah. Although I can imagine that Elizabeth Moss isn't being harassed to be on course all night, every night, or by the latest OEC volumes or lectures in the same way that other people are.
I agree.
Which is a big thing.
Yeah.
Like if you're a regular person
Yeah.
with a regular job and you have to have money for Scientology and life. And so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess those are two different things. They're treated better, but they are aware of the exact same aspects of Scientology all non-celebrities are aware of.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Even if they're aware that it's happening to those people over there and not to me and my family.
Exactly. Yes, that's completely right. Yeah.
Yeah. What else, guys? I don't have the lovely Barb or the lovely Marilyn starring comments today, but let's see. I think I have start a few earlier. Okay, Old Frizz. I always wonder about Elizabeth Moss. I mean, Handmaid's Tale. Also, her dad died recently. She has recently had a baby. I wonder how she will bring the baby up. Do you know if her partner is a Scientologist? Guys, Elizabeth Moss is as hardcore of a Scientologist as it gets. She recently did OT3 within the last year. In fact, I did a video about it. She was here doing her, she did OT3.
Yeah.
She is a hardcore dedicated Scientologist. There's no way her husband's not a Scientologist.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I just can't imagine participating in that show and like being able to live with yourself. Like, it is insane. I mean, what are the chances that no one ever says anything to her about it? I mean, they don't even need to. Like,
did you see at least the first season?
Yeah. I've watched it.
Watching that show, which parts of it reminded you of Scientology or the Sea Org?
I mean, the part about her being taken away from her kids, because, you know, sometimes that's how it felt for me. Like I basically never saw my parents and her like sort of having to wear a certain thing and not be able to say what she thinks, just being like a servant, basically being in a cult and like having really high stakes if you act human, you know, especially if you like grow up in the Sea Org and sort of having these like official leaders and it all sort of being its own world. Because that's how it was for me. I know it was less like that maybe for other people, but it was like I was, you know, from when I was 6 till I was 12, I was in a place where I didn't see other people like who weren't Scientologists or Sea Org members. So it just all had their own rules and they have their own language a little bit on the show. And like the people who are in charge get this sort of like extra power complex that only comes when you have so little power to begin with. Yeah. And just like the punishment for doing things wrong.
Wow, that's a lot of similarities. So is this an example? Is this an example where
and not having kids, even though I guess in that show they want them to, but there aren't.
They sort of have to, right?
Yeah, but then there aren't kids around. So yeah. And then the second that the kids get old enough, they're basically like have to make babies. Like that's not how it is in Scientology, but I just mean being put to work for the cause immediately.
I can see the similarity there, just being as soon as you're old enough, you're put to work.
Yeah, exactly. You're put in the Sea Org.
Right.
Yeah.
Could this be an example? There's any way that Elizabeth's experience in Scientology is such that it does not cause her to equate those things with Scientology, because she was never around cadet orgs, or because there is a difference between 13 and 14 and 15-year-old kids running around, on Sea Org posts at Flag, and like what you experienced at the Ant Ranch.
Right. Yeah.
Or even the Pack Ranch, or
Right.
even the Clearwater Cadet Org.
Right.
Which is something that, even though I knew cadets, like when I first came to Flag for training, like, of course I knew Diane Rhodes, I knew Sophie Amiel, but actually those were the only two that I knew. And I only knew them because they were coming into course.
Right.
But like, even I've never seen a cadet org. I've never seen they call it the HI, the QI
at Flag.
Yeah. I have never actually seen what the life of a cadet is like.
Right. But you know about it, right?
I do know about it.
And you knew about it when you were there, right?
Yes. I was jealous of them. I wanted to be one of them.
No, but like, if you think about, like, if you're a Scientologist, an open Scientologist, like, I mean, Katie Holmes knew, and I have a book that has, like, she knows David Miscavige is the leader of Scientology.
Right.
What are the chances that she's at least maybe never heard that his niece was anti-Scientology, that she's never even heard that, even if she never read about it? Like, what are the chances that she's never even heard that? I mean,
Right.
Scientologists have heard something about that. They know where not to look.
Right.
But that's a choice not to look. Now, when your only internet is kept under lock and key and your cell phones are forcibly taken away and you are being held in an auditing room, that might be an excuse not to look further into that. But there's no excuse when you're like going to the Oscars, you're getting tons of money on your own, you live this fancy lifestyle. There's no excuse. The stakes aren't high for you to find out about it.
That's right.
So it's by choice.
That's a good point.
And so even if she doesn't already know,
right,
like, it's by choice that she doesn't.
That's such a good point.
I mean, you think, and she was like this is just total speculation, but she was with Fred Armisen. You know, the guy who was on the Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
What's the chance that he did not bring that up to her?
That's such a good point.
Yeah, that's not
might be
possible.
why that marriage ended really quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
And have you heard the things that she said about that marriage? She made it seem like she thought she was marrying one person and then just suddenly discovered he was he'd been conning her the whole time about who he really was. And I've always wondered, like, what could that possibly mean? And it could mean like, once they got married, he just wouldn't shut up about Scientology.
Well, I would feel it would be the opposite. Like, maybe she tried to act normal and then they like get married and she's like this crazy Scientologist.
She's like, pick up the cans.
Exactly.
What are you withholding from me? What have I not found out about you?
Yeah, she's like a Scientology staff and she's like,
meet your personal sex checker.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're going to do this like Tom Cruise did.
Exactly.
That is a really good point. The stakes for those celebrities are so low to actually go and find out. Like, why would you not want to know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, your leader's niece and his father and his brother and
Leah Remini
have all left.
Yeah.
And have things to say.
Yeah.
And you're going to self-police to the extent that you don't even want to hear what there is to say.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Right. But you're still going to support the organization and even if you're not supporting publicly, give them money.
Right.
Like, there's no excuse for that.
No, not at all. It makes me think not very highly of John Travolta when I think about it this way, when I tend to think quite highly of John Travolta.
I know it's hard not to love him.
And also all the loss and the tragedy that he's been through in his life. But it's like, but to see, but then you go, but you did experience all that loss of and tragedy. And that was in spite of Scientology you're supposing to have prevented all these things, and they're not even letting you do the OT levels, and you're still giving them your money. Like, why?
Right. Yeah. Although I guess the worst thing to happen to somebody is still the worst thing to happen to them.
Yeah.
I don't really, I knew what I meant by that when I thought it, but now I just mean like, maybe the thought of finding out that Scientology is bad would be the worst thing that has ever happened to that person. And so
just imagine how many people who are the closest people to him who have died. First of all, his son, his wife, Lisa Marie Presley was like his best friend.
Yeah.
And he even...
And out kind of Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lisa Marie Presley was like, they'd go over and have some late night sessions of bitching about David Miscavige and Scientology. And John was there. John was on board for those conversations. But you know who wasn't? Kelly. Kelly's like, I don't like her coming around these parts.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Which is why I thought when Kelly died that John, the thing that was holding John to Scientology the most was, now no longer there, and that he would just gradually drift away. And it's also why I'm still partially convinced that in his own way, he is gradually drifting away. But until he says something publicly, we'll never really know.
Right. Yeah, true.
I don't care if he shows up to an event. It's like, please, that's the least you could do. Who gives a shit?
Right. Yeah, totally. And again, who knows what they know about him that they're holding over him?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I feel like if they were to like say that stuff, they would just look horrible. But that hasn't, I feel like that's only recently been the case. Like, meaning in years past, I feel like people would genuinely be worried about that. And Scientology could leak those things or even just hold the threat over you to leak some things, because if you're like, for me, it's like, okay, Scientology could leak things about me. Well, that would be boring as fuck. Like, I was in Scientology the whole time. But if you're a celebrity, you could like do things in the world that were like exciting, that are blackmail worthy.
Yeah.
That probably matters a bit more for them.
Yeah. Okay, that was all in response to Old Frizz's question. Thank you, Old Frizz.
Yeah.
We got Dylan Gill up in the chat. When I was in the CMO, kids were being brought over from South Africa and being posted as tech pages. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's see. Ken's channel. Love the discussion, but we know Scientology thinks they live lifetime after lifetime. Kids are old souls in a small body. But yes, most Scientologists don't think L. Ron Hubbard is returning to his multiple houses. Why the difference? Well, as a good little Scientology soldier, what did you think about why L. Ron Hubbard was? Did you think L. Ron Hubbard was returning?
I didn't really think so. Like, I remember hearing it once when I went up to the international management base, and then I was given a tour of his L. Ron Hubbard's big house that they were like, it was like a mansion that they were maintaining for him. And I was like, oh, well, is anybody going to live there? And then I remember my Aunt Shelley told me that L. Ron Hubbard was coming back. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't realize that. And then I don't even remember what else she said about it. So I guess that was a really big deal for people at the INT base. But I just had the idea that L. Ron Hubbard went off to Target too. And whenever we were ready, we were going to join him there. So him coming back wasn't a big part of my belief in Scientology. And I didn't really hear about it after that. So I didn't really care. I was just like,
Yeah. I certainly did not think L. Ron Hubbard was coming back. And it was specifically because of the reference that he said something like, I'll see you. And someday way up along the line, I'll see you on the other end. I'll see you on the other side at Target 2.
Where there's all the wind blowing. And he's like, that one.
That's right. Is it RJ67?
Yeah, something like that. It's an L. Ron Hubbard lecture. And we would have to listen to L. Ron Hubbard lectures. It was called tape play. Maybe once a week, and they were always at like 11 o'clock at night. When
Source night.
Yeah. And everyone would fall asleep. But then towards the end, if you fell asleep, you'd get assigned to scrub the dumpster with a toothbrush. So I had to like keep like 20 people awake.
Jenna's job was to walk around with a stick and whack everyone who's fallen asleep.
Well, if you were in CMO, you actually had to stand up and keep people awake. But I wasn't. There was this one guy who had glasses that he wore, and he drew a picture of eyeballs and stuck in his glasses, so he always looked awake.
Like that was gonna work, or did it actually work?
I mean, he was far, like, because we could only be on the sides, and so we weren't like going up to people in the rows because it was like in the Flag Auditorium.
Oh yeah,
So we
yeah,
couldn't,
yeah.
like, so I mean, looked fine to me. Plus, we didn't really want to be doing that. But no, later at middle management, I was just sitting
off the screen a little bit. Okay.
I was just sitting in the like when I was just like sitting listening to the tape play, like everyone sitting next to me would fall asleep. Like I don't know how these people had not learned thus far in their Sea Org career their one job of staying awake no matter what, but they hadn't, so I had to constantly keep them awake.
It's really hard to stay awake listening to an LRH lecture.
But it's even worse keeping people awake.
Oh, I believe
5
you.
people.
I believe you.
That's really annoying. I guess it's not really worse, but yeah, being constantly woken up is like torture. Yeah.
And also when someone wakes you up, now you have the added fear of knowing what's going to happen afterwards. Like you're going to have to get an ethics interview.
Yeah, but these were my friends. I was just keeping my friends awake so they didn't get in trouble.
Oh.
Yeah. I was saving them. I'm a hero in this story. The other part.
God.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Why were we talking about LRH tape play? I forget. Oh, Target 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And L. Ron Hubbard basically said he was going to be going off to another planet somewhere else in this galaxy to get Scientology started, just like he did here on Earth. Somehow he was comfortable with leaving the troops behind to finish clearing Earth, even though he very specifically said that once you get to the top of the bridge, you don't want the fellow members of mankind on your conscience. You don't want to leave Earth and reincarnate and just go have fun, or as Tom Cruise would say, frolic. Did he say I want to frolic? Is that what he said? I want to romp. Tom Cruise said, I want to romp. Well, don't pull a Tom Cruise and just go and romp. You got to come back and help save everyone else on Earth. And it's like, bro, you did exactly what you said we were not supposed to do.
That's so
what
true.
WTF OMG?
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
so true.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was thinking of this song that we would sing as kids at the ranch. And it was literally like, I have done, this is L. Ron Hubbard speaking, but we would sing, I have done the work that I came here to do. I shall move off now, and the rest is up to you. Carry on.
Where did this come from?
It's a song called Carry On.
But where did it come from?
We would sing it at like Sea Org. Someone wrote it, but it was like,
it was literally about.
It was L. Ron Hubbard talking, but then there was a verse for every like there was a verse for the cadets, and it was like, the cadets are working hard, doing projects while our bodies grow, and they're training to be top flight SO. Carry on, and keep the ship on course, keep the purpose strong. I am off to the stars, here's the helm, don't take long. But it says something about Target 2 in there, but it was like saying that he's going off now, and now the rest is up to us.
That is the most cultiest fucking thing I have ever heard in my life.
I remember
they made a song about him not coming back, and these fuckers at the Int base still thought he was coming back.
That's true, yeah. And we would sing it every Sea Org day.
How does that make sense?
I don't know, but
when Mike first told me that that they were actually told that L. Ron Hubbard was coming back, I was like, well, didn't you wonder why everyone else thought the opposite?
Yeah.
And he goes, I didn't know anyone else thought the opposite. I said, and anyway, it's not like we argued about it.
No, yeah, totally.
He's like, I never gave it much thought. I'm like, what? Because I feel like if I actually expected L. Ron Hubbard to return,
then you'd be like,
then I'd be like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, that's probably why they didn't tell people broadly. That could cause problems.
I want to know who made up this song.
I don't know. I think it might have even just been like a staff member that made it up, but we would sing it every Sea Org day.
Bold move.
Yeah.
Very bold.
Yeah. I remember more of it.
Is there more? I want to hear more of it.
Okay, wait. I remember the part of the CMO because I was like, I want to be in CMO. So the CMO are the emissaries of the man who has shown us how to be free. They are leading us to a planet clear and free. Carry on.
And the cadets would sing this at Sea Org Day?
Yeah. And there was like one about gold. We're the crew of gold and we make the best AV.
Make the best. Oh, AV.
AV, yeah. I don't remember the rest of that one because I was like, I'm being CMO.
Gold. No thanks.
It was in the officers of RTC. They safeguard the
technology.
Crap. I don't remember. But there was one that was, I only remember the beginning of them. The auditors in the HGC use technology to set beings free, every single being, not just you and me.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, can we move on from this?
Wow. Emma Robson. Hi, Aaron and Jenna, supporting from England.
Yay.
Thank you, Emma. And Lori says, I can say hey to Aaron anytime. So I'm using this to say, hey, Jenna.
Hey, Lori.
You are all kinds of awesome. Jill Davidson, thank you for gifting a channel membership. Scott Allen, does going clear have any real life benefits? Have you known anyone who got over phobias, insecurities, etc., or is it all BS placebo effect? You have an opinion on this?
I mean, I would say that there are some things like just say, so in order to get to clear, you have to do grade 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So I can say like on grade 0, even though it's traumatizing if you're a child, they're literally having you say the most embarrassing things or say things you wouldn't otherwise want to talk about. And so in the end, it is going to make you more comfortable talking about things because you're literally practicing doing that. So that is something.
Yeah.
It's like practicing public speaking, or it's just like doing more of anything.
Yeah. What makes it hard for me to answer this question in like a serious way is that when it comes to something like, I guess I'll just generally say mental health, like things that are entirely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell someone who feels that something helped them that it didn't? Like, how do you know it didn't help them?
Right.
How do you know it wasn't that thing that helped them? And even if it's a placebo effect, you have no way of knowing it's a placebo effect without doing some sort of a structured clinical trial type setting. Like the point of using a placebo and then using the actual drug in a controlled setting is how you in order to know if something is the placebo effect, you actually have to compare it to a placebo.
Right. Yeah. But some of the results of Scientology auditing, like let's just say ARC straight wire.
Yeah.
It's like I can recall past lives. But that's really only useful.
But that's also
Scientology.
Like I would argue that's bullshit. That's someone being delusional.
Right. So having left and having done ARC straight wire, I'm like, okay, that was what was supposed to happen. And do I continue to benefit from that right now because I received that? No.
Right.
So it's like maybe you can think that at the time.
Yeah.
But it's not
right.
something that benefits me
right
now, just to use myself as an example.
Sure. I mean, it's funny because I'm being a little wishy-washy on this answer. What I really want to say is, it seems to me it's pretty obvious that it's almost all placebo.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way for me to be able to say that with certainty about someone else.
Right.
But one of the things that is very obvious that happens all the time in Scientology is usually you're not talking about a situation where someone actually made an improvement, but now you're having a debate about what created the improvement. Was it placebo or was it the auditing? What usually happens is that someone is claiming to have had some gain that they very obviously did not have.
Right.
Like, let's say someone finishes grade 1
Mhm.
and they're like, I don't have any problems anymore. And you're like,
Like,
your kids hate you, your husband hates you, you just lost your job, your car got repossessed. And you're
Right.
you're in a delusional state that you don't have any problems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I would even argue that I guess while Scientologists are in Scientology to improve themselves, on some level, like especially if you're someone who grew up in Scientology, or like, meaning achieving the state of clear comes with a certain status. And every auditing action you do in Scientology, you have to have a win or a realization, or say you gain something from it. Otherwise, you will just have to keep doing it forever, or you will get kicked out because you're a suppressive person because you don't make case gain. So, in order to achieve this status level of clear, you actually have to get through the grade chart actions. And in order to do that, you have to say you had a win. And whether you actually had it or not, you have to pretend like you did. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. A lot of pretending.
Yeah.
Or I would be like, oh, I got this feeling, and then I'd like expand upon it, and like, I would just sort of like make it into a bigger deal than it was. So you're sort of incentivized to make up wins that you had.
That's
in
right.
order to achieve the status.
That's right.
Yeah.
The fact that you get to a point where you cannot finish a session without saying it made you better. You cannot finish a grade or a level without saying it made you better. And you would literally get in trouble for ever telling a Scientologist anything other than it made you better. It throws almost any idea of real gain completely out the window.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, this might be a bit more like complex or not true for everybody, but I feel like at some point in Scientology, you're not even doing Scientology to improve your life. You're doing it to achieve the goals of Scientology and get up the grade chart so that the planet can be cleared. So it's not like your job kind of means nothing in the world of Scientology. Why would you try to get better at your job unless it's to make more money to give to Scientology? So it's like, do I sound crazy to you?
No, it's an interesting point. I think at some point you're just doing what it is people are telling you need to do to advance to the next level. You're just doing it to raise your status in the group or to get closer to what they said you should be trying to achieve, which is be more like L. Ron Hubbard, become full OT.
Exactly.
It's not, I think most people paying for their next auditing action isn't like, there's something about my life I really want to improve. It's like, that's the path. I'm told that's the path. I'm told that's the only path. I'm told that's the reason we're all here. And that therefore it's the next step. It's not.
Yeah. And to stay out of trouble and to be a good Scientologist.
Yeah.
And to maintain status. So I think that the main point where you're actually gaining something from Scientology is when you first come into Scientology and they're saying that it's going to cure your ruin, or it's it's maybe initially helping you with things.
Yeah.
And then
if I just, my personal opinion on this is to reinforce what you said about most of the gains being in the beginning. I think for a lot of people, you give them a little bit of structure, you give them a little bit of guidance and advice, you give them a little bit of positive reinforcement, you give them something to believe in, and they feel much better in general.
Yeah, they feel like they belong to something that's important.
Yeah.
And a lot of people lack purpose in life. A lot of people, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge aspect of happiness that is sometimes hard to get outside of a church.
Yeah, it's true. And so when you find a community and then they're really hammering home that, no, we're here to save everyone.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, this brief breath in eternity. And we don't even worship L. Ron Hubbard. He's just a guy that came up with some great tools. And
totally,
there's a very effective system at the introductory levels of Scientology to make it very sticky.
Yeah, right. No, it's so true.
Oh, we got the lovely Marilyn helping us in the back now. Hi, Marilyn. Thank you for jumping in. I really appreciate it. Okay, we got Feral Cheryl up in the hizzy. It's the placebo effect working. My dad still has wicked ADHD and OCD. He was OT7. So no, it did not work. There you go. Joe Raz. Question: since Scientology has been around for decades now, do they not realize nothing promised has happened? Actually see it with their own eyes, not just some anecdotes, especially celebrities. This is an amazing question. And the answer to this question is something that just makes me feel humiliated for my former cult self. All of the bullshit they told us in the events, not only did I believe it, it didn't even occur to me that not believing it was an option. Like, it didn't even occur to me that any of this information might have been fabricated or even exaggerated. Like, I just swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. Going to events always made me feel great about still being there and doing what we were doing.
Me too. But why would you feel embarrassed about that? Like, I did, like, when they would tell us that they like cured blind people in like Jakarta or some shit, like, I was like, wow, that's amazing.
So we can be embarrassed together.
Yeah. But I was a kid. So were you.
Don't make excuses. I'm just saying, like, it's not like I don't feel shame, but I do kind of go like, oh my God, how could I possibly have ever, you know?
But like, now you've grown up and now you're doing what you do now and you don't believe it. It's the people that are still there that are like,
no, I know, but it's not like I got to a point when I was still in where I realized I was being lied to, and that's what contributed to me leaving. Like, it just is. When I say, it's not like I just feel, like I said, I don't feel like a ton of personal shame about it. It's almost like when I think back on the stuff that I believed without any effort at all, I wasn't trying to convince myself to believe it. It was just a one-way street of information coming in and me believing it wholeheartedly. I just go, there is no limit to what people can be convinced to believe. And it is not tied to intelligence.
Right.
It isn't.
Yeah.
I see some people out there making statistical claims that actually people with above average, higher than average IQs are actually more susceptible to being drawn into cults. And I kind of go, please don't give yourself any credit. Like, no, that we don't get to play that game. We don't really, we're smarter than average. I'm like, I don't know about that, but I do feel comfortable saying that it is absolutely not negatively correlated, where only stupid people are, fall for these things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely believed everything I heard at events too. And it was like, wow, I'm in the right place. And even hearing people share their wins at graduation and stuff, it was like,
that was the best part.
Yeah.
Because like these people up there sharing their wins, they're like professionals, they're wealthy, they're successful in their industries, they're doctors, they're lawyers, well, chiropractors, but if that counts.
No, it's so true. And the music.
Scott Salo. Scott Salo is a public Scientologist who got into Scientology when I was on staff there. A literal rocket scientist.
Wow.
And was literally employed as a rocket scientist. It's not like he got his degree in rocket science, but his real job was interpretive dance.
Yeah.
An actual trained rocket scientist employed as a rocket scientist. He got into Scientology so fast, so hard, gave all his money, bought all of his OT levels.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to be a dummy.
Yeah. See, that's why I think that sense of community and the, even the status is like, to me, that's what it was all about. And like having that where you couldn't get that somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like that's a big part of what Scientology is.
It's true.
And to me, why public Scientologists stay in. I mean, even like my ex-husband's parents, his dad was like, super, like when we left and we were like, oh, it's horrible there. And he was like, he was worried about his position in Scientology. And I do think that it is like increasingly hard in the world today for people to find community, like outside of church.
Yeah. It's true.
Or just the world is a little bit different.
Yeah. You mentioned your ex-husband's dad and being worried about his standing in the community. It's amazing how far he took that. Like even to the point where he knows you're writing a book. Like even though he knows, like at that point, you're essentially one of the biggest SPs there could possibly be. A former SEERG member writing a book about how bad Scientology and he's like, just don't say anything bad about the tech.
Right. Yeah.
But don't you think there was some piece of him being like, as long as she's not saying the tech is bad, like if she goes so far as to say the tech is bad, that's going to make me really feel like I lost standing with my group.
Right.
Like even then
Yeah.
he was splitting hairs as to what would be bad or the worst bad or.
Right. He's like, I can explain this or make excuses for saying stuff about maybe David Miscavige or how it was when I was there. But if I cross the line to L. Ron Hubbard,
Yeah.
then all bets are off. It's unsavable, basically. Yeah.
It's wild. What does this say? Uh-oh. Laura Font. Who clipped Jenna singing the culty song? Make it so. I can't believe I've never heard this song before.
Oh, yeah.
Would Laura have been there with you?
Yeah.
When
we once did a video together and we sang it in there, but we never published it.
Oh, that's right, because you guys never published that one.
Yeah.
Dylan is saying there were advices about L. Ron Hubbard coming back. We read them in CST. That's right. And one of the things, about Dylan calling these advices is that advices is the term that was given to secret communications from L. Ron Hubbard when he was off in seclusion for the last 6 years of his life, because he was not supposed to be running Scientology. They didn't want any evidence that he was running Scientology. And all of his communications to Scientology during that time are called advices, and they are confidential. I've never seen one before.
I've seen like one or two being at the int base.
Yeah.
And they were like maybe about kids, but I don't even remember. But I never saw them anywhere else.
So, Dylan, having worked at CST, which is one of the highest level organizations, would have been privy to those advices.
Right.
And it's just one of these things. I will never understand how international management was told L. Ron Hubbard was coming back when everyone else was told that he wasn't. And no one ever thought this was weird. Like Mike Renner's like, I didn't know what everyone else was told. I was like, what are you Target 2?
Yeah.
And Mike was like, I thought we were all going to go off to Target 2 together. I was like, that's not what he said though.
Yeah.
But it also occurred to me that if you were already told L. Ron Hubbard was coming back, you might interpret what's in these references differently. Like me, not expecting him to come back, reads these references, and I assume he's not coming back.
Right.
But if you were already told he was coming back, you might read that reference and go, no, I can see how that's compatible with him coming back.
It's true. Yeah. And I remember when Shelly told me he was coming back, I was like, okay, I guess that explains the LRH offices in every org. So, but I just didn't.
But it doesn't, because meaning, well, to someone who thinks he's coming back, it explains it.
Yeah. But
to someone who doesn't, I never thought it was weird that those offices were there. I thought they were just ceremonial. It was kind of like in North Korea having a photo of Kim Jong-un in every house.
Yeah.
We've already got photos of L. Ron Hubbard on every wall in the damn org. Having a little ceremonial office for him was just an indicator of the on-sourceness of the org, that we run this org as if L. Ron Hubbard himself might walk in someday and occupy that seat.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought before. But yeah, I don't know. Even when she said that, I was like, I don't know. I mean, like that seemed like if we really wait around for this, then we're going to find out that Scientology doesn't work on some level. So maybe just erase.
Talk about mismanaging expectations. Don't tell people you're coming back, bro. Have that be the surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise, bitches, I'm back. Where's my mansion?
Well, and then it's, of course, how would you know it was him?
I know. Is he supposed to come back as a lookalike?
Obviously not.
This story was not thought out.
Oh, yeah. But then there's all these Scientologists who have kids who are like acting like their kid is L. Ron Hubbard.
This is little Ronnie Jr.
Yeah.
It's actually surprising that there aren't more boys in Scientology named Ron.
Yeah, yeah. But people even like in
I can't
my
even
family
think of one,
have been like, my daughter was born on this day and she has red hair. And I'm just saying, like, what are the chances? And I'm like, all right, this is embarrassing. Like, do you know how many people have said that?
What are the chances L. Ron Hubbard would live one lifetime as a ginger and want to come back as a ginger for a second lifetime? Come on now. Because, come on, that was funny as hell.
That was funny. I laughed for as long as I could.
Okay, what else we got? Scott Allen says, thank you for your answer. Like fear of speaking, wonder if anyone is clear or OT and terrified at speaking at those large events. Oh, absolutely. Public speaking is, I mean, that's a very common fear.
Yeah, I agree. But it's also like, I guess one thing you do learn from Scientology is that you can just do it anyways.
Yeah. Joe Raz. L. Ron Hubbard had a talent to make up stories and songs that sucked, but can't get out of your head after you hear it. You know, the funny thing is, L. Ron Hubbard didn't make up most of these Scientology songs.
I think he did some of the Road to Freedom ones.
Right? For sure.
Yeah, but
I wish we could play those without getting copyright struck by
my
Scientology.
God, I loved all the songs so freaking much. Like,
my mom would play that shit on the car nonstop. That's all we ever heard in the car after we joined staff.
yeah,
I loved them.
Yeah,
for that reason.
Yeah, totally. Me too. I like
Affinity for You.
Yeah, that song sucks though.
Oh, geez. That was the John Travolta one.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That might have been one where like each celebrity took a different verse or chorus or whatever you call it.
Oh, but the L. Ron Hubbard one sucked.
Was there only one where he was on it?
Listening.
Oh, that one.
That song sucked. Even then, I was like, can we skip this?
You know, we could never get away with probably playing the music on a video. I mean, we could if we didn't mind it getting a copyright. Well, they would copyright.
Well, we should do it. We need to do a name this tune, name that tune, and just finish the lyrics or something. So
yes.
Play like a little excerpt of it.
No, you get dinged.
Oh, okay.
You get dinged for even a 5-second audio clip.
Dinged where they tell you to take it down, or you just can't.
Demonetized, restricted, but the Scientology could actually come in with a full-blown copyright strike.
Okay.
Yeah. Sins of Scientology. Sandy, so good to see you.
And Abraham.
Those gains are only gains to Scientologists. I'm sure to everyone else in the real world, they would just say, yeah, that is what is supposed to happen when you do A, B, or C.
Yeah, that's true.
Emma Robson, and ding, ding, ding. That's Aaron and Jenna just explaining how the whole thing is a massive con. This is why we need SP TV. Thank you so much. William Decker. Oh no, now Jenna's song and the Macarena song is in my head now.
We put it together, do a mashup.
Pat O. Who else is loving this Genron collab?
That sounds like
Generon. Yeah, Genron. Yeah, it's got to be a better one. But that's good. That was a good one, Pat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Johnny, what is it like when you level up an OT level? That's actually a really funny way of putting it. I leveled up this week.
Yeah. It's like a glow up. Like you go to graduation, you go on stage, everyone's clapping.
Yeah.
You get your name in the source mag.
Yeah. I spoke at flag graduation a couple times. It's terrifying.
Yeah. When
the funniest thing I ever did was an accident and people thought it was intentional.
Is that the story of your life?
It was when I finished Key to Life.
Oh God.
Which it's supposed to give you like magical communication abilities and to be able to think conceptually and not literally and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of my speech, I literally forgot what I was going to say next. And I was like, oh, I had just gotten done saying something that like I mastered the communication skills and everything. And then I was like, oh,
or did I?
What was that next thing I was going to say? And everyone laughed like it was an amazing punchline. And I was like, oh yeah, now I remember. And people were coming up to me afterwards. I was like 13 years old.
Yeah.
It's like, that was incredible.
Like,
you are so funny.
That is so funny. That is amazing. I remember Diane Rhodes also spoke at flag graduation when she finished Key to Life. Me and Aaron and Diane were on Key to Life together. And Diane was like so like great at everything. I just wanted her to like calm down and be a fucking normal person for once, because she made me look like a worthless turd because she did everything better than me. And she spoke at graduation. And you also have to, like, when you complete the course in the classroom, you have to share your win.
That's already scary enough.
Yeah. I ran out and then I got in trouble and had to like go to cramming because I was like,
because you didn't want to share your win?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I ran out of the classroom and then like my mom found out and she's like, oh, I heard this happen where you ran out. And I was like, Yeah, because I was terrified. Meanwhile, Diane and you are like speaking at the entire graduation. I mean, how many people are at graduation?
I was going to say it's not less than 1,000
Yeah,
people.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a podium and a mic.
You're up on stage. There's like the captain of FSO is standing behind you.
Yeah, lights, and there's like a huge picture of L. Ron Hubbard. That's crazy.
Yeah. Did your mom ever say like, why can't you be more like Diane?
Oh yeah, all the time. I thought you were gonna say she did. She never said, "Why can't you be more like Aaron?"
Your mom never knew who I was.
Yeah. She didn't say it in like that way, but she would always say nice things about Diane. She'd be like, she's the CEO of the cadet org, you know, that's like the boss of the cadet org. And I was like a groundsman at the time. And I was like, and then Diane was so nice that I was like, can't you just be like a little bit of a dick so I can hate you more?
Diane and Sophie. Such good memories because we were all just little munchkins.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, just having as much fun as we could in the situation that we were in.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I've just decided that my excuse is that I was younger than you guys, so I was farther behind.
Your excuse for what?
For not being as like gung-ho and great of a Scientologist and sharing my wins.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, being 3 years younger is a lot.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Joe Raz is a #1 contributor tonight. My second cousin, 12-year-old, is coming over today for us to make Jenna's cookies.
Yay. That's
I
awesome.
almost forgot. I just got the text. Have to run out to get the ingredients. Put on her video how they came out. What is she talking about exactly?
Well, I made a video about like making these banana bread chocolate chip cookies, but then I put the recipe on my community tab for the weekend in case anybody wanted to make them.
Oh, nice.
That's so sweet. That makes me so happy when people make my cookies.
By the way, John Shostovsky, the master moderator, and he's got to be in the live chat, right? We haven't looking at the live chat, but John should have gotten his special box of cookies.
Yeah, he did. He messaged me.
Oh, he did get them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good.
Hi, John, if you're there.
Irrelevant Panda, L. Ron Hubbard, king of over-promising and under-delivering. Yeah. Amanda Beaumont. Hey, good to see you, Amanda. Had a funny thought. What if L. Ron Hubbard came back in a petite woman like Jenna and saw that people saved those big old man clothes? That's right. They tell that story of every day at the International Base in L. Ron Hubbard's mansion, they set out his clothes of like big, fat, 70-year-old L. Ron Hubbard, not like young, slender. We're talking like there's like the fat Elvis days.
Yeah.
And there's the skinny Elvis days.
Yeah.
For some reason, they saved all L. Ron Hubbard's fat clothes.
Oh.
And the assumption that he would want to come back ready to fit those clothes.
Yeah. Or wear clothes from like 100 years ago.
Yes.
Not new.
Yes.
Cool clothes.
Exactly. Yeah. How would they know it was L. Ron Hubbard? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Mustard's Homeless Songs. Good to see you, Daniel. I'll sing Thank You for Listening.
Oh, yeah.
So they basically synthesized L. Ron Hubbard's voice to be as pretty much deep as humanly possible. It's like, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I write just for you.
Yeah. It's like Santa Claus.
Yeah. And all I remember is, and if they believe quite otherwise, it still will have impact. And whatever that low tone is, it's like 100% computerized. A voice doesn't go that low.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. I was just like,
it is.
Skip. That's the song that L. Ron Hubbard sang on the.
It's like the last song on the album, I think.
Yeah, on the Road to Freedom.
I found Dory says AA Jen. That's not bad. Lisa Raphael, if you guys just sing the songs, they can't copyright strike you. It's true. That's actually what I was going to propose. Like God. We could just sing them.
Yes.
Yes. And a 1 and a 2. Homie, don't play that. Although with a few beers, you might be able to convince me.
Yeah, same. I already did completely sober sing the song.
Red tar for me. Maybe L. Ron Hubbard is with Danny Masterson. It is a prison planet. Target 2.
Maybe.
I don't totally get it. Like maybe L. Ron's in jail?
Yeah.
Hmm. You going by the alias Bubba the Love Panda? Marilyn says, I made Jenna's banana cookies.
Oh, yay.
And
yay,
they were
Marilyn.
so good.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Dave's Deep Dives. Ron. Is there a P.O. box? I want to send some stroopwafels.
Stroopwafels.
Dave's Deep Dives. Shoot me an email at growingupinscientology@gmail.com and I will send you an address. That sounds delicious. John Shamwowski. Did Ron get cookies or is he always on a diet? These things are not mutually exclusive. I am always on a diet and I still eat the cookies. Eat all the cookies. Susan P. Thank you for being a member for 6 months. What's this? Does it matter to you? Not for me. Thank you for all you both are doing in the space. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, what's this? We got Teeth and Claws 12. Is Aaron still being deposed in the Cardone Ledger case? Yes, indeed. I certainly am. And who's my 10X hat? No, my 10X hat is over there. It did get the deposition did get postponed, but it is still happening. And Daniel Kinemanda Haas. When is Robert Dam coming on? I'm from Denmark and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yes, that's right. We were going to possibly do it early this week, but for scheduling reasons, we thought it would be better to do it early next week instead. Robert Dam, he's a guy in Denmark, wrote a book. He wrote a book about his own story a while back, but then he wrote a book more recently about basically children in Denmark who were working for Scientology.
Is it the one you're talking with Cyril about? Like
Yep.
It had many people's stories, but they were anonymous?
That's right.
That's so cool.
And
That's
so
awesome.
it was that book was basically the reason why the press were looking to speak with former child Scientology slaves.
That's so cool.
And Cyril's pretty much the only one in the Denmark area who wasn't anonymous.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Daniel Mustard says, if Earth really is a prison planet, Ron might be in trouble for trying to free it. Imagine that sec check. Yeah. He's got some splaining to do. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. How about we wrap it up there? Seemed like a good time.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Marilyn, for helping us in the back
Thank you.
office. Thank you to all the moderators for helping with the live chat. And thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. Talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.